Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sage Business Cloud Accounting Topic webinar. My name is Joanne Barnard, and I'll be your host and panelist for the session. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working in Sage Accounting, our online version, and we're going to be discussing selling prices and what the price lists are. So basically, when you sell inventory items, you can link those inventory items to a selling price. And that will be the selling price as you are processing. Now, when we have selling prices, every year or maybe every 6 months or whatever, we want to adjust those selling prices. And we want to make sure that we are updating those selling prices unless you are entering up manually. So if we had to, for example, go to an item, here we can see that we can enter the details of the item, but then here we can see the price list. And if we go to our price list, we can see the different price lists, and this is where we would enter the values accordingly. So for example, 1,000, obviously please give it a code. So let's do 02, and here we're going to do default price will be 20, wholesale price will be 15. And you would enter your price lists accordingly. And you do this for each item, and you would save it accordingly. And we can save our options. Now, either every year or whenever you want to do a price increase, we will see what those prices are. And when we are transacting, when we are buying stock from the supplier, we get a cost. So either an average cost or a last cost. So knowing that you have in fact entered your price list, as well as knowing that you have a last cost and an average cost is important, because when we actually go to items and we go to transactions and we go adjust selling prices, we see that we have three options. Now, the first two options, it does not matter if you have multiple price lists or not, but the last option, you can only really use that if you have more than one price list, because this is where you would copy from one price list to another. So for example, you know that if we look at the price lists as we saw them, so I'm just going to go into an item quickly and then I'll come back. But in this instance, we go in and we see our price lists. Now you may know that your wholesale is going to be 10% less than what your retail is, or you enter the wholesale as, let's say, 10 Rand 50, and then you know that the retail price is going to have a 20% markup on that selling price. Knowing that, what you can do is you can then come in and you can go copy from one price list to another. You can copy your wholesale price to your retail price. And once you've done that, you can go in and adjust the selling prices. Now, there is a difference between adjust the selling prices and adjust the selling prices using the quick entry method or grid. Now, if we just adjust the selling prices here, what we're doing is we're choosing the price list we'd like to update. Now, if we're doing the scenario that I discussed where we've done wholesale to retail, we might want to only work on retail because we've already entered our wholesale. So this is where it's important to know, am I selecting everything? Or if you deselect, you'll see that it then says all, or am I working on a specific price list, like in that scenario? Then what am I working on? This is why it's important to check. Hang on, I want to, for example, do a markup on the last cost or the average cost, or with the wholesale to retail, I want to do a markup on the selling price. And then if we go next, here we will see that it's allowing us to select a range of items or select one item at a time. And then we can, for example, go, okay, is this both active or inactive? Normally, this will only be for your active products, because if it's inactive, that means that you're no longer selling it, but you can say both. Your category is important. So if, for example, you have put these under specific categories, please select the correct category, because otherwise it's not going to change at all. So for example, here I might go stationery, and then what is the item type? Am I working on service and physical? So this again would be if I'm selecting a range and I'm going, I want to do everything from my A4 notepad all the way to my bike. But I only want to update my physical prices. So this is where, again, we can filter down and go, right now I'm working on the physical prices. The services need to actually only go up by 5%. So you can narrow it down and do them in that kind of wizard where you are going, okay, that's 5%, but everything here is 10%. And that's where you can then enter that value accordingly. Here we can see that I've said no rounding, but if I want to round, I can have round up, round down, or normal rounding. And if I am doing normal rounding, what am I rounding to? The nearest 5 cents, the nearest 10 cents, the nearest rand. So you can enter that accordingly. And then what is the adjustment percentage? So in this specific scenario, what I've done is I've said, okay, what I want to do is I want to work on my retail price. I'm using a range from my A4 pad 01 to my bike. I'm doing it on both active and inactive. Here I've specified the category none, but again, you need to specify your category. So again, if all of these fall into different categories, you either need to go from the top to the bottom to select everything, because you can see a from and to, or you can select just a specific category, which means only everything in that. So because I'm doing a range that goes across categories, I'm selecting the very first as none, and then the very last, which is my stationery, but I only want to affect my physical items. My service items, I don't want to affect right now. I've chosen normal rounding, which means anything 1 to 4 is going to round down. 5 to 9 is going to round up, and I'm going to the nearest 10 cents, and I want a 10% markup, and I specified on the selling price. Guys, apparently you can't hear me. With my sound, please can you advise if you can hear me again? So if you can use the question icon, little question mark in a speech bubble, and just type yes if you can hear me, because someone has said that everything's disappeared, the screen, everything. I just want to make sure that you can hear me. I do see the raised hands. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. I have turned off my sound, turned on my sound, turned off the screen, turned on the screen. So I just want to make sure, can you hear me? Please type yes in the question icon. Okay, apparently I'm back. Fantastic. Great. Sorry about that. So in that scenario, as I said, I'm working on the selling price. So if I now say next, what it's going to do is it's going to tell me that, look, this has been done, and we can go and view our list. Now you can start again, especially if you only selected one price list. But you saw there that it did it in a specific, so I selected a specific range. If, however, I do item selling prices using the quick entry grid and we say next, here what we see is, again, it's going to ask me to select a price list, but you'll see it's now asking me to select a specific price list. I can't select all of them or do all. So in the quick entry grid, you can only work on one price list at a time. Again, then it's asking you to select your range. And it's asking you the different questions. Do you want both, inactive? So it's giving you the different options again. And it's asking you, what do you want to base it on? So in this case, let's say we actually want to base this on last cost. So I want to do a markup based on the last cost of my suppliers to make sure that I have my gross profit margin worked out. So normally, when people increase the selling price, it's either because they've already worked out their gross profit margin and they've told people, hey guys, there's going to be a 10% increase on the selling price, but that doesn't mean that you can't keep your gross profit to, for example, 10%, 15%, but you do need to then just say, hey, there is going to be a change in cost if you're not sure what that percentage is going to be. So again, we're choosing our different options, and here we are either adjusting the prices manually or adjusting the prices by percentage. So in the first option, although a lot of this looks similar, we've got two very big differences. Okay, guys, I'm not really sure what's happening because apparently the recording is playing. There shouldn't be a recording playing. Sorry, guys, we seem to be having technical issues. So someone's saying that a recording is playing. I'm not sure what recording is playing. So hopefully I'm still live. I'm going to continue, but I might keep checking that. So here we can see that there are two main differences in the fact that you're going to work on a specific price list. You can't work on all of them or on two or more. And two, you are adjusting the prices either manually or by a percentage. So manually would be you are going to actually enter the specific new selling price. You've worked that out and you are specifically going to enter them. I'm so glad. Okay, so it seems to be a problem on that delegate's side. Thank you so much for letting me know you've had no issue. I will let them know. They might need to exit and just re-come in. So let me just let them know that, and then I'm going to continue. So basically, you can select that. Now, if we select manually, what that means is that when I go to next, this is going to then give me my items as they are, and it's going to go, okay, this is what everything currently is. What would you now like to change it to? And it is going to allow me to manually enter those values. So that's what the quick entry is. It's manually entering them, and I can see the new GP percentage. So I can come in and I can enter accordingly and change those things as need be. So I might have created these myself. However, if I go back to my adjustment options and I say by a percentage, and we say, for example, again, 10%. Also, sorry guys, I did not actually mention the update selling prices on recurring invoices. If you have set up recurring invoices, please tick this, because if this is unticked, that means all your recurring invoices are going to show the old price. If they are automated, you're going to have to basically let the customers pay that and then manually go and change them. So please tick to update those automatically, because it means it will update them with the new selling price and you don't need to manually go in and fix that. But here we can see that if I select that, we can see what the price was, and now we can see that it's automatically been updated for me. That doesn't mean that I can't now come in and go, actually, although that was 10%, this specific thing I actually want to increase by, say, 15%. So I want it to be a specific value. So again, why would we use the one above the other? So we would use the adjust selling price if you want an overall blanket on, for example, one or more price lists. You don't want to be specific and you want a blanket adjustment. There's no, I want to see this and adjust it afterwards. Basically, what I want to do is I just want to run this adjustment either on selling last cost, average cost. I'll give my range, I'll give my stuff. It's always based on a percentage. There's no manual. So I'll say 15, 20, whatever. I update my selling prices, I run it, I'm done. So it's a blanket. It's over everything that I select. However, if I want to be more specific, that is where I will adjust my selling prices on the quick entry grid. So what I'm going to do is I might have a percentage where I'm like, look, actually, I believe a 15 or 20% is the best. Or where actually I've already worked out what I want to do and I want to manually enter the differences on my quick entry grid, where I can just enter them as per my Excel spreadsheet and make sure that they're correct. This also gives you the view of being able to see your GP percentage. So here we can see what's happening. We can go, okay, I see that this is the adjustment that it's having. And what does that look like? I can then come in and change this accordingly to actually enter maybe the GP percentage that I am looking for. I can also enter that GP percentage and it will work out the exclusive or inclusive price for me. So I can go, okay, what does 30% look like? And I can rather go, I want my GP percentage for everything to be, for example, 30%. So this allows you to work not only on exclusive and inclusive, but also on your GP percentage where you can enter it. It will work out those prices for you and you have more control here. So either you can physically enter the exclusive or inclusive as you need to. It will then create the GP and the exclusive depending on which one you enter, or you can work on any of the others. So if you know, generally I want to increase everything by 15% on the last cost, but there might be some things that I need to, I want to do a little bit of rounding. I don't actually want to have, 43 here. I want to round it to X. Generally, again, if we go back to our item adjustments, I did say no rounding. So we can then normal rounding to the nearest 5, refresh those prices, and hopefully it will round accordingly. and we can see what we're working with. Again, also bearing in mind where you tell it to round, because it might be rounding your exclusive and not your inclusive. But that is where we have the two differences. Then the last option, again, is where we are actually looking at when we are copying our price lists. And why would we do that? Because we know generally when we work out our price lists, we're working on a range. That's why we have multiple price lists. And the most common ranges are things like retail, wholesale, pensioner. And we know that our pensioners have maybe a 2.5% discount over our retail, but our wholesale has a 5% discount. So we start with our wholesale, we enter all of the prices, we can then copy that price list, the wholesale price list, to all of my other price lists. So I can go, okay, I'm copying wholesale to my pensioners and to my retail. I can copy them across, and when I copy them across, I can also adjust those selling prices. I can go, yeah, I want to adjust them, and I want to adjust everything, for example, on the selling price by 5%, for example. And what it's going to do is it is then going to adjust. Just be careful when you are doing that adjustment that you're not doing it on both, because obviously the pensioners maybe are 2.5 and the retail is 5, and to adjust down is going to be difficult. So do we understand the difference on why there are two different options? So we understand the difference between the selling prices and the quick entry grid, and what the difference is between those two, and what things we can do within those two different options. And do we understand how we can use the copy to another price list and then filter it in with these options? So guys, basically my question is, do you have any questions on how the adjust item selling prices works? Please use the question icon to let me know. So guys, I'm going to give us until probably the next minute or so. Actually, if you have a question, click the raise hand icon so I know. If I do not see a raised hand icon by 10:23, I'm then going to move on. Because what we haven't discussed is how we create our price lists. Because initially you'll just have one price list. Where do we go to create our price lists? How many can we create? And then obviously that's where we create our items, use those price lists, and from using those price lists, we then do our item adjustments. Okay, so guys, I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I'm assuming that we're all on the same page. Then where can we actually come to create price lists? And generally, if we go into our general settings and our item settings, this is where we see our price lists. So you would go to company, change company settings, general settings, and then we have our price lists, and you can create as many price lists as you need. These price lists can then be linked to specific items. And you can create those and you can delete them as you need to. So you would normally start when setting up your company going, hey, what price lists do I need? But at times you might only have one price list. Once your business becomes successful, you may be happy to give certain discounts to specific groups. So for example, if you're a builders, you may not necessarily have wholesale, but maybe to building companies, they will have a separate price list to individuals, which would technically be wholesale and retail, but you may call it something different. And that is where you can start giving those different discounts as a whole, and then linking on those items, you will then create those price lists. So all items are linked to all price lists. It's just when you actually look at your customer, that is where those specific price lists come into play. So when we look at our customer, we can link a specific customer to a specific price list. And I know that was here somewhere. But basically, you then link your specific customer to a price list, and that customer will then, when processing them, you will give them, there we go, what is the default price list? Sorry, it was just a bit down. And you will link them to that. So for example, if you are a Builder's Warehouse or a Leroy Merlin, you may go, you know what, my construction companies, I'm going to have a construction, and that is basically my wholesale, and I'm going to give them a 5% discount on all of my items because they buy in such bulk. And basically, you will then link those companies that have proved to you that, look, we are a construction company based on your criteria. You will link them to that price list so that when you're processing, you don't need to go, oh, hang on, I am processing and I need to remember that, you know, Alpha Cycling Supplies needs a 5% discount. So every time you process this transaction, you have to go in and give them a 5% discount. Now, this is where people normally ask, well, what is the difference between the price list and the invoice discount? Now, the invoice discount would be what you use if, for example, you have a customer that you know always uses you. So this Alpha Supplies always comes to you. You get a monthly or a weekly order from them. It's always, for example, let's say 50,000 Rand that they're ordering from you on a weekly basis. So you're like, you know what, guys, what I want to do is specifically for you, I want to always give you a 5% discount. That is where you will go, you know what, specifically for you on all of your invoices, I'm going to give you a 5% discount. Using the price lists then makes no difference because that is specific to your specific customer. It is not a group of customers. It is one specific customer that you've built a reputation with, and this is something that you're saying, look, since you use us, I believe that I am going to do this because it's actually in my company's best interest to give you this little bit of discount, because either you may start ordering more from us or I secure you as a customer. That is where the discount comes in. But if this is just a customer that forms part of one of your price list bases, so you have 20 customers that form wholesale or form construction companies, that is where your price list comes into play, because you don't want to constantly be going, hang on, is my Alpha, sorry guys, that is where that comes in. Is my Alpha Cycling Supplies part of my wholesalers or not? What did I give wholesalers again? You know, that is where the difference comes in. Does that make sense? The difference between an invoice discount and actually having a price list discount where you use the two different options. Guys, please let me know if that makes sense, because obviously all of these things fit in and the whole system fits in, but you use these different options in different ways. Please let me know if that makes sense, because obviously we're more dealing with price lists and how price lists work and how to update price lists and how you use price lists. But I just did want to, because it is a question that's come up before where someone goes in, what's the use of my discount? That's when it's specific to the customer, not to a group of customers. So please let me know if you're happy, if that makes sense, if we understand the differences, and if we're happy with how the adjustments work when we would use one adjustment type over the other. And again, what I mean by that is when updating our selling prices, when I would use the first selling price option, over the quick entry grid. Are we happy with the information shared today? Does this make sense? Did you guys learn something? Are there any questions based on this? Because guys, that's basically the webinar. It's a pretty quick one today, but it was just to show you, where do I create my selling prices? How do I enter my selling prices on my items? How can I adjust those selling prices, and how do they affect my customers? Why do I need price lists, and how does that come into play when I'm processing to my customers? Please let me know. Hopefully you learned something, and if I confused you, let me know so I can clarify. I will give us until 10:32 for any questions. And while we wait, guys, if there are no questions, then I just want to remind you of a couple of things. Firstly, guys, if you have a support question, please use the support email. I did not mention this last time, and a couple of people went to the default of emailing me. Guys, if you email me, I am going to email support. So I just want to make sure that I give you the correct email for that. It is on our news flash, it is at the bottom, but that would be support@accounting.sage1.co.za. The reason that I ask you to please email them and not me is because I am the only person that monitors my email. If I'm doing a webinar, as you saw, I had to open my email to check my emails. So my emails are not always open. So I do not always see your emails timeously, especially if I'm creating videos for YouTube. I cannot have the pop-up coming up, and that could take hours. On top of which, guys, I want you to have that reference number. If you email me directly, you don't get a reference number with regards to your query. So please always email support@accounting.sage1.co.za, because firstly, you are going to get a reference number. Secondly, that is monitored and it goes into a queue to make sure that your email is seen to. And if you want a call back, you want to speak to someone, you don't want to phone the telephonic number, that number is also at the top, and it is 086-123-SAGE or 086-123-7243. You can in the email go, please call me back. They will then call you back, but please don't email me your support queries. Not because I don't want to help you, but because if I am busy, that could lead to a delay. You have no idea if I've seen it, and there's no record of you emailing me. So guys, if I go on leave for 3 weeks, you are not going to get a response. That is going to be very frustrating to you, and you're going to think that's bad service. You need to follow the correct protocol. If you email me, it needs to be for things like, hi Joe, please can I get this recording? And invariably, if I am on leave, I do have an out of office on. It's very rare that I forget that. So you should get a response within 24 hours. Guys, if you don't get a response within 24 hours, please re-email me your query with regards to, hi, I asked you this question in the webinar, or hi, I need this recording. I don't know if you saw this mail, because sometimes, especially if I'm doing videos or I'm doing webinars, I may get a number of emails all at the same time, and I might not mean to miss your email, but in clicking through them, I may accidentally have clicked on yours and have thought that I've replied to you. It's the last thing I want. So if in 24 hours you haven't gotten a response, please just re-email me, because that way I can go, I'm so sorry, I must have missed your mail, or whatever it is. It's possible I actually just didn't see it, and then I can respond to you. I do try to do so pretty quickly though. And please email support for your support queries, because I want to make sure you have those reference numbers. It's not because I don't want to help. It's to ensure you get the help that you need, and there's a record of you having emailed us. Then guys, as well, Please note that Sage City has actually now changed to Community Hub. So I'm not sure if they have in fact changed the, yeah, they have. It's actually at the moment, it is rerouting, but it's now communityhub.sage.com/ZA, and they're calling it the Sage Community Hub. It works exactly the way as Sage City did, but we've rebranded it as the Community Hub. So please bear that in mind. Otherwise, guys, the next webinar that I'm going to be doing is going to be on bank reconciliation and how it works for our Sage Accounting, the online version. So we're going to go through banking and we're going to be looking at that reconciliation. What does it mean to reconcile? How do we reconcile? What means if there's a difference? What do we need to do? How do we manually do a reconciliation to make sure that there is no difference? That is what we are going to be hosting in about 2 weeks. And that's a really important webinar to come to, guys, because this is often what a lot of calls are on and it causes great frustration. So please sign up for that one. And then, guys, I've gotten some emails on, Joe, what is an open webinar? An open webinar is your chance to ask me things that I maybe haven't covered. So maybe you've had questions that haven't been answered fully. You know, I've given you an answer and you've kind of left it, or you feel a little bit shy and you don't want people to think that, you know, this is a bad question, which, guys, actually, there's never a bad question. And we really mean that. I'm an expert, so what may seem basic to me may seem very difficult to you. I've had 14 years experience doing this. So that is where you can ask those questions. There may be some I cannot answer in that moment. So I might be like, this is an amazing question and I actually don't have the answer for you. I need to go find out. Those need to go into emails so that I can get you those answers. If you are curious in the answer to someone else's question, I will ask that you too ask me to please send you that answer via email. Because if I can't answer it in that minute, because I may need to go to one of my colleagues on my teams just to say, look, this is a question I've been asked. I actually don't know the answer to this, which is a great question. It's going to help me learn. They will see. If they don't know, we're going to go to Dev, and then we will give you the answer accordingly. But that's what that is. That is for you to come in and go, listen here, this is something I struggle with, or this is a question that I didn't feel I got a proper answer to. And please don't be worried to say something like that. That's totally okay. I'm so sorry that you didn't feel you got a proper answer. It helps me to grow as well and go, I'm so sorry, I thought I had. And so please come in there and ask me those questions. Guys, if no one asks me anything, I'll probably then just run over some random, well, not random, but I will choose something that I think is pertinent for the time. Probably things like, hey, if you're going away, if you're closing your business for December, these are some things to be aware of. That's normally what I host in there then, if no one has any questions. And we can talk about if staff are going on leave, what does that look like? Should you shut down your machines? We might talk about some basic PC health. But please come with questions if you do have any. Otherwise, guys, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm hoping you learned something from this webinar. I hope that it was informative for you. And therefore, I'm going to wish you a fantastic day further. I hope I will see you at the bank reconciliation one. That is going to be a much longer webinar. I am also hosting a webinar on Pastel on Thursday if you are interested. And Thursday's webinar is going to be on price lists. So this is going to give you how price lists work in Pastel, and if you've attended this one, you may then see some differences, and that may open up other questions to, hey, I didn't see you cover this in Sage Accounting, or Sage Accounting has this, why doesn't Pastel have this? And hopefully we can answer those questions. So guys, sign up for the Pastel one if you also support Pastel, if you're one of our business partners. Otherwise, as I said, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you at the future webinars. Thank you so much, guys. Ciao, ciao.